Guys, good day to you all. How are you guys? I hope you're doing fine. So, for the past weeks, we've been discussing about switches, basically EnGenius switches or ECS lineup. What are the features? What can we do with the switches, and how important it is on the network? For today's webinar, we'll be going back to the cloud because we'll be launching a new feature, which we think is very, very useful, especially with the global pandemic that we have today. Now, a lot of businesses have started to open up slowly. I think some countries have fully opened up. Some are just starting to open up. Some have opened up but are closing down again because of increase in the number of infection. But this feature that we'll be adding, which we call exposure analysis, we think it can help a lot in terms of trying to prevent the spread of the disease further by tracking clients, by tracking your staff in your own controlled premise. So I'll be discussing about the overview on what is exposure analysis for, where you can use it for, what types of applications you can use it to, and I'll be showing you guys a quick demo on how you can enable it and how you can monitor the system using exposure analysis. Now, this feature is expected to launch next week, so it will be available as a free upgrade for everybody that has been using the EnGenius Cloud solution. So if you have existing EnGenius Cloud APs, ECW 120s, ECW 230s, 220s, and so on, so long as you keep it updated to the latest version, right now it's version 1.3.7, you should be able to use exposure analysis right away as we enable the app on the portal. So right now, as I mentioned, the businesses have started to open up, but there is a risk on that. As we open our businesses, we're inviting more people to come into our offices, maybe to our restaurants, to the different deployments that we have. If schools are open, then we're increasing the risk as well in terms of spreading the infection. So what do we need to do in order to help monitor that? So another thing that we need to do is to safeguard our employees, because employees are trained. Employees are the assets of the companies. Now, if, for example, all their employees, knock on wood, get infected, that means your business will basically be crippled. Now, there are different solutions that we can help track foot traffic of people to prevent or limit the spread of the virus. But at times it can be expensive, maybe costly, or it may take a lot of time, or a lot of things that you need to involve in terms of the hardware and the software just to implement this kind of system. So the main challenges in trying to track your staff, the people in a certain company or in a private network that you're managing, is allocating manpower. For example, if you need to do manual tracking, it will require a lot of resources. You have to have someone there doing the tracking. They need to log everything in and out of your office, in and out of the campus of the school maybe, to check and have a detailed record of everyone that went in. So in case something happens, you can easily track back. Another challenge would be keeping the database or the record of all those people. You can either encode it on the system, on your maybe on your computer or a tablet, or you can manually write it down. Another challenge is, let's say, for example, again, somebody gets infected, and then the authorities from the country where you're located at need to do tracing, need to track. So they would have to go onto your records. It's either on your system or on the handwritten records to check who has this person been in contact with for the past number of days at this certain time, who are the people at this office, so they can easily do tracking. And of course, the major challenge would be the implementation of the system. Usually with these types of systems, it requires a lot of time and effort to do integration, as well as it may cost a lot. So one example of a good tracking system, which is implemented here in Singapore, is that they have this, what they call this, a safe entry system. So basically, if everyone leaves their houses, if they go to groceries, to their offices, to restaurants, basically anywhere you go, if you want to leave your house, you're gonna have to scan this QR code, which is available before you enter the premise. So on this QR code, once you scan it on your mobile phone, it will require you to key in your credentials, basically your identification, your national ID or your passport number, as well as your contact number. So it will be like a check-in and check-out system. So before you enter the premise, you have to check in. Before you when you go out, you have to check out as well. So in a way, this is one method for the government to trace. If something happens to you, they can check where you went at this moment, at this specific day. So they can also check who are the people that have checked in at that time, so they can try to limit the spread of the virus. Also, they can use this system in terms of disinfection. For example, you spent a lot of time in a certain restaurant. So maybe for a moment, they can disinfect all the places that you've been to. It's easy for them to track. But this type of system may not be easily applicable or easily applied to different countries. So in Singapore, it's very easy to apply because they already have the system built in. But for other countries, it may be very, very difficult to implement it. So maybe what you can do is start at a smaller scale, like for example, your own premise. So at least you can protect yourselves, you can protect the staff, you can protect your visitors as well. So let's say one scenario would be, like I mentioned, a small office. So here, once your employees walk into your, let's say your offices, you have your access points there, you have your cloud APs, you can just enable the exposure analysis feature. With the help of this feature, of course, your access points would be there on the site. You can tag the names of your APs. For example, let's say you have a 3-story office, and maybe you only have 3 APs, which can cover the whole office already. So you have your AP on the ground floor, second floor, and third floor, and you label them accordingly. So first floor AP, second floor AP, and a third floor access point. So from there on the system, you can cross-check who are the staff that went in the office, let's say yesterday at about 3 p.m., who were there. You can also check their location based on the alias that you keyed in for the access point, as well as who are the people that are nearby this specific person if you want to do tracing already. So with this system intact, you don't need any other hardware basically. If you're already using EnGenius Cloud APs, you can just enable it on the system. You don't need any external database server because you can use our own AAA server as well, which is also built in. And basically, it's more on labeling. You just have to label your access points. You just have to label your individual clients, your staff, to recognize who these people are. And when you cross-check later on the monitoring side, under the exposure analysis side, it will be easy for you to track which person is on which area at what specific time frame. Now, this is applicable for the office environment, but of course, it's not limited to that. Let's say on the office, you have visitors as well. Of course, these visitors, maybe they would just stay for about 1 day or less than that, maybe half a day for certain meetings. And you don't really want them to be authenticated on your system. So you can also enable other parts of the cloud features for you to log them on your exposure analysis window. So if you enable, let's say, QR code authentication, and then a visitor walks in, you can just ask them to, hey, can you, before you leave or when they arrive, can you scan this QR code for a moment so we can just lock you in the system? So this reduces additional measures that you need to implement. For example, you don't need to write their name down. You don't need to log them on the system manually. You can just have them scan the QR code and automatically it will be logged on the EnGenius Cloud exposure analysis window. And then at the moment that he scans the QR code, once he connects to your SSID, basically his client MAC address will appear at the specific time frame that he connected. So at least you know this specific guest visited at this particular day at a time. Another scenario that we can apply exposure analysis is maybe on like private tuition centers, institutions, or private schools. So a lot of schools nowadays have implemented smart learning. So each student would have their own tablets, or maybe they'd have they share different tablets, but they have their own individual logins to cross-check with the system. So exposure analysis can be used to check not only where the client is at a specific time, but also it can act as a form of like a attendance system. Because like I mentioned, when you use exposure analysis, it will tell you where the client is at what particular time and what particular day. So from there, you have a like a check out, check in system built in as well. So you can use this so that you can check whether a particular person have walked into your class and what time he went out and so on and so forth, even without having to manually check the individual time cards. For the parent side, it would give them additional ease of mind as well, because they can check, maybe they can cross check. I don't know how the system, the school would implement this, but maybe they can provide information to the parents that your son or daughter went into the school at this day. They stayed for the whole duration of the time, and so on and so forth. But of course, with the current situation right now, it would be great to trace people, especially if somebody gets infected at a school. Because when kids get infected, usually classrooms have a lot of people, and they can spread the virus to their families as well. Third scenario is for shopping malls, but here maybe we can integrate this with third-party solutions. So for shopping malls, when they have access points, usually depending on what type of system is implemented, they may be required to log in using SMS authentication, or they may need to log in using social media authentication, or maybe they would be required to register first. Like their name, their email address, and so on and so forth, before they can get free Wi-Fi. So usually shopping malls have Wi-Fi systems to provide free Wi-Fi for guests. So with the help of location-based tracking, which you would use with third-party location-based analytics software or servers, you can see the footprint of all their clients throughout the mall. You can track where they go, to which part of the mall, which boutique, which area. If they walk into certain restaurants, you would see all that information as well. So it works hand in hand with the full features that we have on the cloud. Exposure analysis, our location-based or on-premise, what do you call this? Presence location services, which we have on the cloud as well. So you can integrate this all together to have a better visualization of where the specific clients go to inside of that mall. So for those who are not aware, we actually have presence reporting on the system on the cloud, which is enabled for all the access points. But of course, it will be better to have this on our upcoming Pro APs because it has a dedicated scanning radio. So what it does is it makes our AP act like a scanning radio, a beacon. And from there, all the raw data that the AP will collect, for example, client RSSID, MAC address, and so on and so forth, will be sent to your presence reporting server or your location-based service system. And then what the LBS system will do is it will generate all that raw data into something graphical. It's going to give you, like, for example, heat map of, let's say, going back to the same example, a heat map of the mall. It would tell you where the client footprint is. If you want to track a specific client, you'd be able to do so as well based on his MAC address. If he logged in on the system, then you can check exactly who that person is as well. So you can trace where he went, how long he stayed at a particular location, what time he left the mall, and so on and so forth. So all of this information can be gathered from that third-party system, which we can integrate with right now. So, by the way, if you have any requirement in terms of integration with third-party location-based services, let us know so we can assist you for the integration. So let me show you guys how exposure analysis works. It's not available yet on the public server, but let me log into a developer account so I can give you guys a preview. Okay, so due to privacy concerns, exposure analysis is actually disabled by default. You're going to have to enable it from your organization view. So once you have selected your organization, let's say right now I select EnGenius Taipei. On the bottom part, you have your organization view. You would notice that there's a new option right here, privacy. So once you open privacy, you just have to click on the enable button. Right now it's already enabled, so the option I see is disabled. So from here, you can enable exposure analysis. So once you enable that, when you go to your clients page, that will be under your management and then the clients tab. You're going to have a new option when you open a specific client. So let's say, let me randomly choose somebody here. Let's see Jason right here. So let me select Jason. So apart from your client timeline, which you would normally see, there is a new tab called exposure analysis. So when you click there, it's going to give you data up to 7 days back. So this applies for all your clients, regardless of how many you have. If you have 50 clients, 100 clients, maybe 1,000 clients connected on your whole Wi-Fi network, all those data would be stored on the cloud up to 7 days. So you can expand on the previous days. So for example, this is today. Let me go back yesterday. Wait, if I'm not mistaken, Taiwan was on a holiday a few days back. Wait, let me select somebody else. Okay, I'm randomly choosing clients right here because they haven't enabled, I mean, they haven't changed the client name. Actually, you can change the client name right here to make it easily for you to remember or identify who the specific person is. So you can easily change that from here. So you can create an alias for them. So let's say, let me see here. Okay, so for example, Roger, I want to see yesterday's exposure analysis. Okay, there we go. So yesterday, maybe for example, I want to check after 12 p.m. Okay, so here, 12 p.m. yesterday, we can see that Roger was connected on this particular access point. So it's labeled accordingly right here. So this one is at the 8th floor R&D center, maybe at room 02 or something. So at this specific time frame, Roger was connected to this access point, and I can see that there are 7 other clients who were connected to the same AP. So given that each indoor access point has roughly an estimated coverage of, maybe in an open space you can get 150 meters, but if it's a confined space with a lot of walls, a lot of what do you call this, dividers, maybe you limit the number of clients you connect on a particular AP. So for this particular AP, you have like 7 clients connected, so I can easily identify that these are the possible people who were in close proximity to Roger. So from here, I can identify, if you have set an alias for each of them, you would identify who the people are. Of course, it will be a lot easier to do that if these are your own staff, because you can label that accordingly if you're the person managing the network. So from here, I can see that Roger may have interacted with 7 people. And then as he moved to the meeting room, he spoke with 1 person, probably, because of the indication right here. So I can see all that information, where he went, at what particular time, who were the people that are near him, from your exposure analysis tab. The nice thing about this is you can also export the data. Right now, we can only export it in CSV format, but once we release our reporting function, which would be available around August this year, you would have a better reports in terms of visually. Maybe you have your graphs as well. But once we export the data right now using CSV format, sorry, let me share that screen. So basically, you get a timestamp. You would get information such as, wait, let me go on. Okay, let's say here on the 24th, at this particular time frame, maybe when he was at the meeting room, So I can check who are the other people who were there. These are the clients. These are the client name, their MAC addresses, and how long have they been exposed to Roger. So, for example, maybe Roger just passed by the meeting room, so he only saw these people for a few minutes or a few seconds. Whereas if I look down further, let me see. Okay, so for example, here on the 30th, which was yesterday, I can see from the system before lunchtime that he interacted with a few people, and basically they were connected on the same AP for roughly about 30 minutes average. So I can see how long they have been exposed with Roger, and I can see who they are, where they are, depending on your what do you call this, your AP name, as well as who the person is based on the alias or the client name. So all this for information is very very useful. Like I mentioned, for contact tracing, especially if you want to trace somebody who, knock on wood, has been infected, or if you want to disinfect a particular area. So, for example, the infected person walked into the meeting room and then walked to the 8th floor RD center, walked to RD center number 1, RD center number 2. You know which areas you're going to have to disinfect. So actually, exposure analysis may look very simple here on the system, but what it does, it can help a lot in terms of prevention of the spread of the virus. Or if you just want to basically track staff, track your students, track people from here, you'll be easy to do that as well. It can act as your like attendance system or time in or time out system if you still don't have one. So again, contact tracking or exposure analysis will be released by next week. That's our ETA. Hopefully, no delays. You don't have to do anything on your access points if it's already updated to version 1.3.7 because of firmware updates, which are done automatically. Most likely, your AP is already updated. We released 1.3.7 last week, if I'm not mistaken. So once we enable this on the cloud, all you need to do is go to your organization. Under privacy, you just have to enable it. So each organization again has their own individual settings. So if you're managing like multiple organizations and you want exposure analysis enabled for all of them, you just have to enable it on each of those orgs. So this feature is added for free. So anybody who has EnGenius Cloud software would be able to use this right away. Do you guys have any questions? I see a couple right here just a while. Okay, so one question right here is, for the QR code system, how many can you generate from the access point? So the QR code system on the AP is actually tied to the SSID. So per network, you can have a maximum of 8 SSIDs, 2.4 and 5 gig combined. So that's technically 16 total. So for the QR codes, 1 SSID, 1 QR code profile. So 8 QR codes. That's how much you can generate per network. Apple iOS has a COVID-19 exposure feature available on the iPhone. Will EnGenius be able to integrate or work together with that product? If I'm not mistaken, iOS as well as Android have enabled COVID-19 exposure feature on their phones, but I'm not exactly sure what type of system they're using. Basically, from their system, if I'm not mistaken, is through Bluetooth. If you're near a certain person, it would like alert your iOS or Android system that you are near this particular person, and so on and so forth. But I think it's more on a different type of tracking. So the way that we do the tracking on the access points is depending on who are the clients that are near your APs, who have authenticated your APs. So it's very very useful for controlled environments in terms of where you deploy the AP, controlling your staff, monitoring your staff, monitoring your students, monitoring the areas where you have deployed your access points. Another question here is there any way that we can correct the mobile name when scanning the QR code? How can we keep track which phone is for which owner, if it's a guest or if it's a visitor or if it's a random person? Okay, let me go back to my user interface just a while. Okay, I'm gonna have to log out of the developer account. Let me log into my own so I can show you more information. Okay, so let me go on to a network that we're managing. So this is in our office here in Singapore. So as you can see, all the clients that I have on the list are labeled because basically these are all my colleagues, all the EnGenius staff. I can see who they are. I know what systems they're using, so we can easily tag them because basically they're our own staff. So for example, let's say this device right here, Muncheng's device. Actually, if I clear off his alias, is actually using a this is actually a laptop. I'm not sure why it's labeled as a desktop. Basically, this one is a laptop that is using. It's a Windows laptop. So, but I know that he's the owner of this device, so I can easily label it. So, let's say you have a visitor walks in on your office, scans the QR code. So, how would you be able to identify that this is the person who walked in? So maybe you can cross-check with other systems. For example, you know that this person walked in at 3 p.m. So on your system, you can check that he's the only one that is not labeled on here, and then you can cross-check what operating system is using, what is the make of the phone, which SID or which access point he connected to. So from there, you can label that. So maybe let's say this is that person, so I can change this to visitor A or visitor B and so on. So at least you have that information behind. But yeah, all the clients that you have on the list, doesn't matter how many clients you have here. Now I'm seeing only a few because it's on the day view. If I have a monthly view, I would see more. So as you can see right here, it expanded. So each of those clients, you would be able to label accordingly. But again, remember that exposure analysis, you can only backtrack up to 7 days behind. But it doesn't matter how many clients are connected. Okay, so another question is what equipment is needed for people tracking? I think you're referring to location-based tracking. So for location-based tracking in terms of the hardware, you just have to use our access points with a cloud system. For the third-party system, you would need a location-based tracking software. You can contact us later on so we can give you information on who we can work with. But basically, we should be able to work with any location-based system, location-based software system, and from there we can do the integration. What item is issued to the people? For the clients that you want to track, actually you don't have to provide them any special device. You don't have to provide them like a beacon for tracking, because here for the location-based system, we use the access points as scanners, and for the client side, basically we'll be tracking their devices that they have, mobile phones, laptops. So through RSSI information, all the wireless information that we can pull, then we would be able to identify this people, where they went, where they, on your vicinity, and so on. Okay, some other questions here have been answered already by Nancy and Michael. Thank you for that. But for everyone to hear, so basically another question here is, does it work on on-premise access point models? So right now this feature is only available for our cloud models. So that would be all our ECW access points. A good question right here is, Is there? Wait, let me. Any cloud bundle? Yeah, I think this other question was in terms of licensing. But yeah, all our access points for the cloud can be used for either the SMB license or the enterprise license. Okay, there's another question here regarding Mac spoofing. How do you locate devices when Mac spoofing is occurring? So we have this feature on the Switch that you can use to identify Mac spoofing. But basically, if somebody tries to spoof the Mac and then connect to your Wi-Fi network, their Mac, whatever they put right there, would still be shown as is. And then you can also confirm other parts of the identification through the operating system that you're using, the chipset vendor, and so on and so forth. So even if they change their MAC address, the rest of the items would still show as is using client fingerprinting. So you still have their host name, you have which AP they connected to, which SSID, their IP address, operating system, wireless vendor, and so on and so forth. Yeah. By the way, for next week's webinar, we'll be updating you guys again on the topics. Because if I'm not mistaken, the EnGenius Cloud to Go app, we might not be able to present this next week. We're gonna have to delay it by end of the month, but we'll be giving you guys an update on the next topic. Another question right here is: can you control individual access right or just monitoring? Um, I'm sorry. Can you please elaborate the question? Thank you. Yeah, while waiting for that question, let me show you guys as well where you can enable the AAA server on the cloud. So, to see the AAA server configuration, you have to basically be in one of the networks. So, for example, here, Singapore office, I'm into the EnGenius SG office network. So, if I go to configure, you have an option here for cloud radius users. So, under the cloud radius users, this is where you can pre-create your wireless client database on the system. So, you can add different users. You can add their username and their password, as well as the name for identification. And then you can select which SSID you want to enable this account to connect to. For example, you only want to enable that person to connect to the Splash network, or multiple SSIDs should be able to do that as well. So for the database count, just to remind everyone, so the AAA server that's built in on the cloud and the voucher system share the same limits in terms of how many you can create. So for the SMB license, you'd be able to generate 100 AAA users or 100 vouchers or a mix of both. But the cap is 100. For the enterprise license, there basically will be no limit on how many users you can create or vouchers you can create. Okay, so the question a while ago was, can the system trigger an alarm if somebody entered a controlled area? Um, all the people who walk into or connect to certain access points would be notified on the system. But specific alarms for that specific person, we don't have that function yet. But maybe we can try to integrate it in the future because we already have the backend system to implement that. Thanks for the suggestion, Ken. How do we register visitors entering the area? So, if you have visitors that you're expecting to connect to your cloud system, there are a few ways that you can pre-register them. First is using the Cloud AAA service. So let's say you're expecting guests, so you can just create a new user for that person, give them a specific username and login, and then select which SSID they can connect to. So from here, you can already prevent or limit their actual connections. Second method is through a voucher. Like you can generate a specific voucher for that person. Let's say you know that he's only visiting for like a few minutes. Maybe you can give him like 1 hour access. After 1 hour, his internet will be cut. So another option is the QR login system. So for the QR system, let's say I have an existing SSID, and this SSID has encryption, maybe WPA2 or WPA3, and then I have a password. So instead of providing this password for that person, for that visitor, what I can do is I can like print out this QR code right here and paste it maybe on the front desk area or at the lobby of your office. So if somebody needs internet access, or if you need somebody to be registered or be tagged on your system to basically check in, so you can have them scan this QR code. It will prompt them to connect to your SSID. The password you don't need to give because that's already part of the QR code as well. So once he confirms and he connects to your SSID, basically he'll be logged into your system already. But since the password is not recognized, I mean he wouldn't know what your password is because it's through QR. Once he disconnect from your Wi-Fi system, the password is forgotten as well. So the SSID and the password won't be remembered on his device, whether it's a mobile phone or a tablet. Okay, guys. So, any other question in terms of contact tracing, exposure analysis, or any other feature on the cloud? The next update that we're gonna have, so far we'll be releasing new updates every month or new features for the cloud. Next function that we'll be adding would be VIP and whitelist functions for the cloud. Okay, I see somebody raising his hand. Yeah, please go ahead. You may either type your question on the chat function or through the QA button from Zoom. Okay, one question right here is, do we need a license for the cloud? Okay, so EnGenius Cloud has two licenses. One is SMB, which is totally free, and the other one is the enterprise license, which unlocks more features as well as unlocks more logging information on a cloud profile. So by default, if you purchase any of our cloud products, you can straight away register it on the cloud. You can create a free cloud account as well and use all the features that what I showed you just now. So when we release the enterprise license, then you'd be able to do more in terms of monitoring the system, and so on and so forth. But we'll be releasing more information on that when we launch the licenses. By the way, the question a while ago, in terms of restricting certain people from connecting to your Wi-Fi network, actually you can do that from your client list as well. Wait, did I share my screen? Okay. So yeah, so let's say you want to block off someone that you do not recognize who is on your client list. What you can do is just select that person. Let's say, let me randomly select somebody, myself. So if I highlight myself, you have an option here to either block or kick that client out temporarily. So if you kick him out, he'll be able to reconnect back. If you block him, you can select whether you want to block him from the network or block him from a specific SSID. So once you do that, he'll be on the block list, and then basically he wouldn't be able to connect either on all the APs on all the same SSID or on any of your SSIDs if you block them on the entire network. So all the clients that you have blocked would show under your access control list. So right now I haven't blocked anyone. So it would show you the MAC address of that person and where he has been blocked. Is it on the network or is it on the specific SSID? Also, you can enable another function right here to alert that specific person that he's actually been blocked from the network, because he might think that he just got disconnected and something's wrong on the network. So you can enable a splash page for him or for all the people that you have blocked. So under general settings, under the AP tab, you have an option here to enable a splash page for block clients. So for example, right here, once he tries to reconnect to that SSID or to any SSIDs on the same network, he would get this screen once he connects. So access denied, and then you can customize this message right here. Like, please contact the admin or something. Can you block a LAN connection? Good question right there. So for LAN connection blocking, you can do that for individual switches. So for our EnGenius Cloud, we can manage not only our APs, but as well as EnGenius switches. So that would be the ECS series of switches. So right now I have one switch here on the network. For example, I want to block a certain port, maybe port 1, to prevent people from connecting a LAN device right there to access the network. So if I go into the details of the switch, I just go on to the port setting. So select port number 1 and then configure. So from here you can directly disable that port. If you want to disable just PoE, you can do that as well. But if you want to disable the port totally for both PoE and data, so just click on just disable the button and then apply. So then it would reflect right away whether this port is enabled or not. So on your visualization view, it will also show you that that particular port is disabled. So, contact tracking, our exposure analysis feature. By the way, it only works for the wireless connection, so you can track your clients on the wireless side. If you only have switches, you wouldn't be able to track people who are wired to your network. Maybe you have another method to track them. It would be easier because they'd have a physical connection to your switch. But basically, exposure analysis only applies to wireless clients on your those that are connected to your access point. Okay, so another question here is in terms of guest access or clients that are not under your control. So can you limit the access of those guests automatically? Not automatically, but what you can do is maybe you can set a specific SSID profile for your guest users. So under SSIDs, since you are able to create 8 profiles, I doubt that you'll be using all of them, but you can create up to 8 profiles right here. So maybe you can create a specific guest network for your visitors. Wait, let me switch to a network that's unused, so I won't disrupt our network. So let's say right here, I want to create another network. Let's say visitor. So here, what I can do is I can limit their access. Under wireless setting, if I want them to not have communication on my internal network, what I can do is I can enable, under the advanced settings, L2 isolation. So if I enable L2 isolation, it will block them off from communicating with any of my devices that are on the local network. and it will block them off from communicating with any other wireless clients as well. So basically, they're only going to have internet access. I can also set NAT mode so that the access points will provide IP addresses for those guests. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm masking my internal IP address, so they wouldn't be able to like try to spam log in to any of my servers. So when they log in, they'll be given a different set of private IPs. So my internal IP would be masked out. So apart from that, I can also enable traffic shaping, so I can limit the bandwidth that the visitors can consume. So let's say I'm gonna limit it to like 2 Mbps upload and download. So once I apply this, oops, I haven't enabled the password. So once I apply this SSID, that means that I have this visitor SSID with a limit on the speed, with a cap, as well as isolation from my internal network. That's one method. Actually, there are different ways that you can create a guest network as well. If you like have VLANs on your system, that's another way to separate the guests from your internal network. Okay, so I think we have time for one more question. If you guys have any question, just let me know. I see one person raising his hand. Please go ahead. Okay, one question here is in regards to, if I'm not mistaken, the splash page. Once clients have connected to your SSID. So let me go back to the interface just a while. So for example, the visitor account that I have created, the visitor SSID profile, let's say I want to direct them to a specific page after they have connected to your Wi-Fi system. Maybe it's a Facebook page, maybe it's a company's own website. So what I can do is go to this the captive portal settings, enable it, select click through. So with click through, basically this allows you to show a splash page first before they are before they fully logged in to your system. So from here, you can either have your own splash page, which you can customize here on the local splash page setting, or basically have your own customized page on your own. If let's say you're using your own login system, your own splash page, you can key that right here. Or if you just want them to have a simple redirect page, so you can enable local splash page, and then after they have, let's say, click on continue to connect to the internet, then you can redirect them on a specific site. So this is where you can type in your homepage. If let's say you have your own website, or if you want to direct them to your own Facebook page, you can type in your Facebook URL right here. So once they authenticate on your system, they'll be brought first to your Facebook page before they can proceed further onto browsing where they want to go to. So if you guys need more information in terms of customizations of the SSIDs, please visit our YouTube page, EnGenius APAC. So from there, you'd have the list of our previous webinars where we discuss details such as SSID setup, guest network setup, and so on and so forth. So this webinar today, I'd also be archiving this on YouTube, so it should be available by tomorrow. So again, thank you so much. Have a good day, everyone.